And back on Open Line, if you have a question, a legal question, we want to encourage you to get that in at 737-7587. We'll take as many more calls as we can in the remaining time that we have in this half hour. We're talking to the legal master, Kevin Kennedy. Kevin, one of our callers called in. She, for some reason, was cut off. But her question was, we were talking about property damage.
Yep.
And she said a mowing company was mowing at her property. They hit the siding in her apartment or condo.
Yep.
And she called the leasing office, and the leasing office said it wasn't their responsibility. She needed to call the mowing company. So what would you say to Monica?
Okay, well, first off, I would still insist to go up the line. I want to hold these people responsible. I didn't pick the company. You picked the company. I wouldn't have had that done. So I try to put respondent superior. Can I make it stick? It's a gray area. Can I get that mowing company? Yeah. What if they don't have any insurance? Let me tell you what happened to me. So I go to the Candlelight Ball at the big hotel in Nashville. I gave them my truck, brand new truck, went, came back, they left a note on the door, said, we wrecked your truck. So I come down and I said, well, okay, guys. Well, he said, don't worry, just call the head office on Monday, we'll fix it. Okay, so I go. When I call the head office, they said, no, that is a company out of Miami, Florida that does our valet parking, and you'll have to take them. And I said, no, no, no. I did business with Hilton. I can't remember which one it was, but I said, I'm looking to y'all. And so they said they have their manager, and he calls me. And he said, well, we looked you up on the internet, Mr. Kennedy, and we're going to cover this. And when I got off, I said, if they hadn't been able to look me up on the internet, they would have just pushed me around. How are you going to get the money from some company in Miami? You don't even know their name, don't know their address. So everybody, when it gets down to paying, is going to do that. Find out all you can, the who, what, when, where, and how. I'd go back on that leasing company, pursue it, didn't say you would. I'd go after both and let their insurance companies fight it.
And would you recommend that she would have a lawyer contact them?
Absolutely. Get a lawyer, fire the letters, because you know it's going to be more than what a letter is to repair what damage they've done.
Well, and you know, which always brings me to that situation when a lot of times when I'm preparing for the show with you, where, I mean, the law is complicated. I think a lot of times, like, you know, possibly a person thinks, well, I'll just call the leasing office and I'll say,
yes,
well, you're responsible. But that they know, well, if a lawyer calls me, it's a different situation.
True. It always is. And then a lot of people come to me and they say, Kev, well, I'm going to try, then I'll come back and get you. Wrong answer, because this is what happens. You call them, they tape you, they get all the information, and then when I try to come in and do the dance to advance, they say, well, that's not what your people said. So put the lawyer on the front end. So take this lesson away from tonight's show. You be on the front end, don't say anything. Let your lawyer do the talking, and then we've increased your odds enormously. Criminally, civilly, whatever it takes to protect you.
Well, and which we say when, you know, looking at the information, the law is complicated. You know, someone might think, well, it's going to be expensive to hire the lawyer, but it's going to be more expensive not to hire the lawyer.
You'll hear him say, I don't know if I can afford a lawyer. I said, really? I don't know how you can afford not to have a lawyer. This is your career. This is your freedom. This is your livelihood. This is your future. It all is hinged. And so once I usually can explain, this is not just a little tip of the iceberg. This whole thing can collapse real fast. Let me dance and have my people come through. And so much of the time, Chuck, it is true. If we get in early, we divert it right away. And it's good. We feel good about protecting our people. So many people are not guilty of anything. And just like this, you never asked for them to destroy your vinyl siding with that lawnmower, but you're going to have to advance. And we already said, we know everybody's insurance. I'm not liable. They are. I'm not liable. Chuck is. Pass the buck. That's who we are today.
That is exactly what they do so often. Kevin, too, we were talking a little bit about what you do and don't say. If, again, you're involved in some kind of traffic accident,
yep,
and the person that you had the accident with, they start asking you questions, the officers are there asking questions, do you have the right to just say, I'm not going to talk about anything until I talk to a lawyer?
You have the right to do that. What we hate to do when you're involved in an automobile accident, I like to get my composure. You know, everybody's tore up. Here we go. And then I like to try to make sure I can explain it where we are not in the wrong. You know, this accident, they came over. You know, I was involved in a car wreck last year. It took almost a year to get it settled. Finally got it settled. And of course, it was a wrestle even with me. And I didn't signed my papers. I had my lawyers. And they said, so again, I try to explain this is what happened, and I try to secure a witness. If I'm riding on the side with Chuck and there's a witness, sir, please, would you help us? What is your name? What is your address? What is your phone number? Did you see them pull right? He said, I did. Man, then we want to record him, want to get all we can. He's our witness. And then if you can convince the insurance company liability, then we're just arguing over damage. So you got to use your best, because if you say nothing sometimes, that other guy says, that was their fault. They were speeding. They ran the red light. They hit me. So use your best judgment.
And if you are in an auto accident with someone, can you, even with the officer there or not there, can you just take out the person that you had the accident with and start recording with your camera, video, and that person says, stop recording me, then what do you?
Hey, it's free. You can still, in the state of Tennessee, that's what I would do.
So you still
could say, wow, what happened? I'm sorry. You know, even insurance policies that don't admit if you had the wreck, because a lot of people, bam, oh, I am so sorry. I never saw you. Well, that's important, because the insurance company is going to want to say, we're not guilty. Well, here's the evidence.
What do we do, too? We were talking a little bit earlier about dealing with maybe the hospitals. A situation happened in a hospital, and for the most part, we know the hospitals take amazing care of people.
Right.
But for that one person that does go through a situation, they come out, they feel that something happened that left them worse when they left and when they got there. As far as dealing with that, what should they do? Should they just immediately start getting to do as much homework as they can to turn and then go to the lawyer and say, here's the problem?
One of the things the lawyer's always going to say, bring me your medical records. Let me just see and hear the explanation of what they are saying. It's harder and harder to get to advance against doctors. Why? Because they have a great lobbyist at the legislature. You have to have a proof of it. Some doctor's going to have to say you have a right to sue even before 90 days before the statute runs. So they've got more and more laws to protect who? The medical profession, because they have the lobbyists. Once you understand how all this really works, there's an old saying, follow the money. Well, insurance companies have the biggest buildings. Banks have the biggest buildings. Guess what? It's the little guy. That's why lawyers are so valuable to the little guy. Anytime they say they want to do tort reform, you are losing some of your rights. Anytime they say, we're going to arbitration, well, guess what? Then you can't get to the courthouse because you've got binding arbitration. You've given away our right to go to court. That's the big fear, and that's what makes people become reasonable. I'm not going to pay you. I'm never going to pay you. But then when you file the lawsuit, all of a sudden they say, hey, we've decided we're going to pay you.
And explain what tort reform is, because it affects a lot of people.
Tort reform is where people come in, they put caps on the insurance. They say, well, I don't think you should have over $250,000 for pain and suffering. Well, if you put that cap on there, the insurance company will say, I'm not going to pay $250. I'm going to pay you $100, because if things go bad, the most I'll ever have to pay you is $250. So people think that would be fair, but insurance companies manipulate. If you didn't have that cap, then you say, we want $1 million. They pay the $250, and we'll go home and not fight forever. The plaintiff's bar really doesn't want to fight. They will fight when we're forced to. And just like if they accuse Chuck of something bad and say, well, we'll give him 5 years in prison, well, we're going to say we're not going to do that. We're going to have to go to court, and you put on your best case, and we're going to put on ours. We're not going to do that. It was your family member. Don't do it. And what helps protect us at the beginning is when there's not a lot of statements out there. So we know some people say, well, all y'all do is play a big game. Well, the insurance companies hire the best lawyers, and so you need to get the best lawyer you can to combat them.
Kevin, we just got under 2 minutes, and you've helped so many people, as you always do, throughout the show tonight. But I always kind of like to get what's on your mind, kind of what are your words of wisdom as we have the final 2 minutes?
Well, I cannot get away from the road rage in the beginning that people are going to pull guns. I'm telling you, if you know a situation is not right, you'll hear people say, well, I felt the hair on the back of my head raise up when you walked into a dark parking lot, or you saw something look suspicious. We've got to be more aware than ever. And let those little triggers go off, because if you don't, it'll lead you down a dark, dark path you wish you'd never been. You know, they say, the preacher says, you know, sin will take you further than you want to go, keep you longer than you want to stay. If you're not using your best senses, you're going to be in that situation. I'm talking with somebody and they talk big about, well, you know, if they come in, I'll shoot them. Well, guess what? As soon as you shoot them, you're going to be sued. And so then when you get sued, is it worth all the aggravation and the possible indictment, even when we're in the right? You can hire good lawyers, we may get you out, but was it worth the agony we had to go through? So the word to the wise, watch. If it doesn't look right, get away from it.
There you go. We've learned so much, and Kevin, you know, as we were saying, loose lips sink ships. There's always something that I call from you, that I get from you when we're talking about a lot of this.
It is true. There's so many words of wisdom. What I've learned when Benjamin Franklin said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. That's true. Let's take a little precaution, and it's worth a pound of cure, no doubt. The guy's putting on the motorcycle helmet in Kentucky. We don't have to wear a motorcycle helmet in Kentucky, but you know your head is more valuable, and odds go up. Traumatic brain injuries are really bad.
Absolutely.
We were at the traumatic brain injury. Guess most car wrecks, a lot of people get traumatic brain injuries.
All right, Kevin, we're going to have to go. But thank you so much.
I wanted to tell it.
I love
Praise
it.
the Lord.
I love it every time. All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll tell you how you can get a hold of the Kennedy Law Firm right after this, so come on back.